Gingrich is about as unpopular with women as a hijab, as shown by the election results of Florida and Nevada. Joining us right now on the Savage Nation to talk about this is the Executive Director of the Edmund Burke Institute, Dr. Grace Vuoto. Dr. Grace, welcome back to the Savage Nation.
Michael, it's great to talk to you.
Well, we've talked about it before. It's pretty obvious, but why do you think Newt is so unpopular with women?
Well, Michael, I think that the mainstream media has missed a major story right now. Essentially, ever since Marianne Gingrich had that explosive interview on ABC News, Gingrich's poll numbers are dropping like a stone when it comes to female voters. Basically, in the subsequent primaries, the female vote voted overwhelmingly for Mitt Romney. In Florida and in Nevada, Gingrich has just been unable to capture the female vote. The females are now running away from him within the party. And subsequently, in all the other primaries, his numbers on the whole have dropped, including with women. And it's very obvious that that Marianne interview is having a huge effect on conservative women. Now, if we recall a sequence of events, Marianne Gingrich, she said in an interview in ABC News that Gingrich asked her for an open marriage with his then mistress, Callista, who is now his wife. Gingrich subsequently said at a major debate in South Carolina that the media was it was a witch hunt against him, and that this was a symptom of a left-wing media going after a conservative. South Carolina, the people there, basically, the voters there, basically bought that line, and he ended up winning South Carolina. They were whipped into an anti-media frenzy. However, just because Gingrich was able to deflect criticism, he was able to deflect, further discussion about this explosive interview in South Carolina, doesn't mean that it didn't have a huge effect. Subsequently, it has had a profound effect, and I don't think he'll be able to win the female vote ever again in any conservative primary going forward.
Okay, then why did he do so well with the female vote in South Carolina?
Well, females as males in South Carolina, they basically bought Newt's line that the media was out to get him. And they were whipped into this frenzy also by a lot of talk radio show hosts. Not you, Michael, because, you stand your ground. You're a man of principle and a man of great courage. However, you had somebody like Rush Limbaugh, for example, who went on and on about this being a liberal witch hunt against a conservative. And so the backlash against the media was what Newt benefited from. So basically, he won South Carolina because he very shrewdly deflected the issue that was being raised by Marianne. But this was a very short victory because subsequently, lots of other commentators came forward and they said, wait a minute, Newt, not so fast. And one of the really influential people that wrote a column that made a mark was R. Emmett Terrell. And he warned conservatives. He said, listen, this man is known in this town as a girl hopper. He has skeletons inside and outside of his closet. Essentially, Terrell was giving the signal, this issue is not going to go to rest so easily. And I got to give credit to Ann Coulter, with whom I don't always agree, but she went up and down the airwaves saying, Newt is essentially avoiding answering key questions about this interview. And so essentially, his feet are being held to the fire now. And I'm one of those people that continue to hold his feet to the fire. I do not think we have fully unpacked the evidence revealed in that interview. And I think that a lot of women shrewdly have seen that this man is unelectable, and they voted, even contrary to their own husbands, contrary to the other men in the GOP, they voted against him largely because of this issue. Some of the questions that have yet to be fully unpacked, let's run over that interview and let's really analyze it very carefully. Marianne said that Newt asked her to have an open marriage with Callista. She also said that Newt said that Callista did not mind sharing him with her. Now, Newt subsequently said that the story is false. So really he was saying that Marianne is a liar. This is not a typical case of he said, she said, where we really can't know who's telling the truth. In this case, we can clearly ascertain by the evidence, by the facts that are known, that Marianne was telling the truth, and that Newt Gingrich is obviously lying to cover up all the sordid details about his private life. How do we know that he was lying? Well, he carried on this affair for 6 years, which he has admitted to, and Callista has admitted to. So what does this mean? This means that, in reality, Newt was trying to lead some kind of an open marriage. He was trying to have his mistress and trying to keep his wife for at least those 6 years. Suddenly, he obviously changed his mind, wanted Marianne to be in on it, and he asked her, obviously, to accept the open marriage, and she said, no, I prefer a divorce. So it's very obvious that Newt had no qualms about having multiple women, which means he had no qualms about living in an open marriage for all those years. So clearly he's a big fat liar. In addition, there's a whole other kettle of worms, that has not been fully unpacked, and that's Callista's role. She was willing to accept that she was having this sexual relationship with a man that was married to another woman. She was willing to accept this for 6 long years, which means that she was willing to share Newt, at least with his wife, at least for 6 years. Many of your audience will know that even people who have affairs, even other successful, quote-unquote successful homewreckers, aren't willing to share the man that they're having an affair with the wife. They put a lot of pressure on the man to get a divorce really, really fast. And so, the whole thing implodes very quickly. But here you have a woman who for 6 long years accepted the situation of Newt going back and forth between herself and the wife. I mean, this is really gross, and this is obvious evidence that both Newt and Callista have sexual standards that, the rest of us in the conservative movement do not have.
Why do you think Gingrich's ex-wife's interview has had so little media attention?
Well, I think Newt successfully browbeat the media on that question, and then what happened was you had a lot of talk radio hosts who continued to browbeat the media. And there's another problem with the liberal media itself. The liberals have put themselves in a big straitjacket because when Bill Clinton was at the height of his scandals, they were saying that the private morality of candidates doesn't matter. So now it's going to be really hypocritical of them to pursue this story any further. So they're basically letting the voters connect the dots. But you know who really should be pressing the issue, apart from conservative commentators like myself and like all the radio talk show hosts out there and anybody who stands for family values, also the candidates themselves. I think the candidates themselves, in contrasting their records with that of Newt, they've been kind of, coy about the personal issues. They say very clearly, I've been married for many decades and I have this amount of children and this amount of grandchildren. They're kind of saying there is a contrast between me and Newt, but they should say it more clearly. They should say to Newt on the debate stage, in advertisements, they should stand up for family values and say the party of family values cannot have a serial adulterer as its standard bearer. The party of family values needs answers on this question. Did you ask your ex-wife for an open marriage? Obviously you were living some kind of an open marriage. And another question too, and this is a huge question. This is the mother of all questions. If Callista was willing to share Newt for 6 years before, and that presumably would be, during the height of their passion when couples, first get together, is she still willing to share Newt? Is that the kind of arrangement that they have today? Newt and Callista need to answer that, because if we want a champion of family values, we need to know what they're doing nowadays in their marriage, because if there's a scandal that emerges once he's the nominee, we're toast as the party of family values, and we're not going to win the general election. And Michael, there's another huge issue at stake here, which a lot of the conservative commentators are not really pounding hard enough on. Women are not voting for Newt. Conservative women are beginning not to vote for him. Do you really think that in a general election other women are suddenly going to vote for this man if he can't even win the conservative female vote? If you know the statistics, Obama won the female vote handily over John McCain. They are a crucial swing vote in any, they're a crucial vote, forgive me, not a swing vote, but they're a crucial vote in any election. During the midterms, the Republicans won the female vote by just 1 percentage point. So we need the female vote in a general election. And I just think everybody needs to say very clearly, Newt, you can't win the nomination, and you certainly cannot win in a general election, because with this track record and with all these questions that are unanswered, you have lost the female vote, and I don't see any signs of you being able to get them back.
Well, who do you think is really supporting Newt, and why?
Well, I'm hearing all kinds of arguments out there. Some people have written to me following the publication of my article, and they have said, well, all candidates have some kind of a baggage, and so essentially, some politicians are cheated on their taxes, for example. Newt has this history, but he is redeemed. Why are you not accepting that this is a redeemed man? So that's one of the cockamamie lines that a lot of the people out there have believe. I've got to say, that's another issue that I wish that the conservative candidates would take on very squarely. To be redeemed, to be truly redeemed if you're a Christian, requires some basic actions. One of the first deeds, if you are truly contrite, is to tell the person that you have harmed that you are sorry. You must seek forgiveness from the person that you have gravely wronged if you are truly to make things right with God. Well, Marianne has said that Gingrich never said that he's sorry. He's never asked her for forgiveness. In addition, he ends up marrying his mistress. I say that is a clear sign that he is not a man who is repentant. He is not a man who is redeemed. He is not a man who has made things right with God as God is known in the Judeo-Christian tradition. I mean, if you are truly repentant, you must discard your mistress and stay with your wife. You don't discard your wife and marry your mistress and call yourself a redeemed, repentant man. So I think that's just a cockamamie argument. I don't know what God Gingrich prays to, but it's obviously not the God of the Judeo-Christian tradition. It's certainly not the God of the Catholic Church. Let me tell you something. As a Catholic, when I do something wrong, I go to confession. The priest always tells me something like, you must seek forgiveness from the party you have wronged, first and foremost. Then you must make sure that you never, ever do that act or deed again. And if you follow those two conditions, then you get absolution. Then you get forgiveness. Then you're in good standing with God. But Gingrich hasn't done any of that by the testimony of Marianne, by his own, basically by what we know about his past. So I think it's just a cockamamie line that he's made things right with God. I don't know which God he prays to. Maybe he prays to the same God Hugh Hefner prays to. Who knows?
In a general election, I don't believe Gingrich even stands a chance going up against Obama. What do you think?
Absolutely not. First of all, I don't think he stands a chance against Romney, Santorum, or Paul. Basically, he's got this southern strategy right now. He thinks he's going to be able to win a couple of the southern states. That's only if the people of the South are, haven't been following his campaign recently and seen that he is very erratic, very undisciplined, very nasty, that he really can't be trusted from day to day. So I think this whole strategy is not going to work. Even if he wins, if he wins a state or two in the South, what are we going to do? Stand up against a general election, a candidate who can only win in the South? That's just a crazy path forward. So first of all, I don't think he's going to win the nomination. And if by some miracle the people of the conservatives of this country elect him as the nominee, there is no way in hell that he could win against Obama, because as I said, he will not win the female vote. The females will remain with Obama in droves, and lots of conservative females aren't going to vote for him. I can tell you this: if he is the nominee, I will not support him, and I will continue arguing against him, because I would not be able to stand having a man like that with that kind of a track record, and possibly with that kind of a present record, being my president. That's completely unacceptable.
Dr. Grace, thanks for joining us today on the Savage Nation.
You can read my article at the EdmundBurkeInstitute.org. It's called GOP Women Reject Gingrich, and thanks so much for having me on.
I'm Michael Savage. We'll be right back. Savage.